In a quiet, remote village nestled between dense forests and rolling hills, a soldier on leave was taking a solitary walk through the woods to clear his mind. The sun was beginning to dip behind the trees, casting long shadows on the forest floor. Suddenly, through the gentle rustling of leaves and distant bird calls, he heard faint, desperate whimpers. The sound was almost drowned by the wind, but it tugged at his heart instantly. Guided by the sorrowful cries, the soldier pushed through thick underbrush and stumbled upon a chilling sight. 3 tiny German shepherd puppies, bound tightly by rough ropes to the gnarled branches of an old tree. Their small bodies were trembling uncontrollably, their fur matted with dirt and dust. Their eyes were wide with fear and confusion, reflecting a helplessness that struck the soldier deep in his soul. They were abandoned, left to fend for themselves in the wild, alone and neglected. The cruel contrast of their once proud breed and their current state was unbearable to witness. The soldier felt a rush of anger and sorrow mixed with determination. These innocent lives were in grave danger, and he knew he had to act, no matter the cost. As the soldier knelt beside the frightened puppies, trying to soothe them with his voice, he caught a movement from the corner of his eye. Just beyond the trees, an elderly man staggered clumsily through the underbrush, reeking of alcohol and muttering to himself. His clothes were stained, his face worn and expressionless, as if he felt nothing at all about the innocent lives he had just left behind. The soldier's instinct bristled. He called out to man, but the old drunk just waved him off, slurring something incoherent before disappearing into the woods. Moments later, a few concerned villagers arrived, having seen the soldier rush into the trees. When they saw the puppies, they sighed, sad, but unsurprised. That man, one of them said bitterly, was their owner. He used to breed dogs for a bit of money, until they stopped selling, called them useless. Another villager added, he said if they can't make him cash, he won't waste food on them. The soldier clenched his jaw. His hands trembled, not from fear, but from fury and disbelief. These were not useless animals. They were innocent, trusting lives tied up and discarded like trash, left to starve or be torn apart by predators. The forest was no place for defenseless pups. The soldier looked down at the 3 little bodies pressed against a tree, their breathing shallow, their eyes pleading. He knew right then, this wasn't just a rescue. This was a mission. "I've got you," he murmured, walking toward the village. "I promise I won't let anyone hurt you again." The soldier didn't waste a second. Dropping to his knees, he began untying the filthy ropes knotted tightly around the puppies' fragile necks and legs. Each knot was a reminder of the cruelty they had endured, dug into their fur, rubbed raw against their skin. As he loosened the bindings, the pups flinched at his touch at first, unsure if the stranger would hurt them too. But his voice was calm, warm, and steady. He whispered gently, "It's okay now, you're safe." One by one, he freed them. They didn't run. They simply collapsed at his feet, exhausted and too weak to move. Their ribs poked through their thin fur. Their paws were cracked and bleeding, and their tiny stomachs let out soft growls of hunger. But they were alive, and now they had someone who cared. The soldier took off his military jacket and carefully wrapped all 3 pups inside, shielding them from the cold evening breeze. They snuggled into the warmth, letting out tiny sighs as if they knew. Finally, they were no longer alone. He held them close against his chest, rising to his feet with new resolve in his heart. The forest that had echoed with cries of pain now fell silent, replaced only by the soft, hopeful breathing of 3 little souls who had just been pulled back from the edge of darkness. Cradling the shivering puppies in his arms, the soldier hurried to the nearest village veterinary clinic, a modest building tucked behind a market square. The moment he stepped through the doors, the vet, a kind middle-aged woman with silver hair, looked up from her desk and gasped at the sight. Without hesitation, she ushered him into the examination room and gently took the fragile bundle from his arms. Each puppy was examined with care. Their bodies were skeletal from starvation, their bellies sunken and soft from prolonged hunger. The skin beneath their fur was red and irritated from the tight ropes, forming angry welts around their legs and necks. One of the pups had a slight limp, likely from trying to escape its bind for hours. They were filthy, dehydrated, and far too quiet for dogs their age. "They're lucky you found them when you did," the vet said, her voice heavy with emotion. A few more hours, and it might have been too late. The soldier sat silently, guilt and anger warring inside him. He had seen suffering before, in war zones, on battlefields, but this felt different. These were innocents, victims of selfishness and cruelty. And now they needed more than just food and medicine. They needed healing, trust, and above all, love. The vet gave them fluids, cleaned their wounds, and fed them soft meals. The puppies, though weak, began to respond. Their tails gave the tiniest wags. For the first time, their eyes sparkled, not with fear, but with the faintest glimmer of hope. As the puppies began to stabilize under the vet's care, the soldier knew his involvement couldn't end there. He didn't just want to save them. He needed to give them purpose, dignity, and the kind of life they were almost robbed of. Looking into their eyes, still clouded with trauma but beginning to flicker with life, he made a quiet vow. They would never feel abandoned again. He decided to name them, not just as a formality, but as a declaration of who they were and who they were going to become. The strongest of the three, with the deepest eyes and stubborn spirit, he named Valor, for the courage it took to survive. The smallest one, who had whimpered softly but still tried to nuzzle into his arms, he called Hope, because she reminded him that even in despair, there's always light. And the third, who had limped but never cried, he named Brave, for enduring pain without surrender. Each name carried the weight of suffering, but also the promise of transformation. The soldier didn't see them as victims anymore. He saw warriors, survivors, family. He arranged for a temporary shelter nearby and visited every day, helping with feedings, cleaning, and simply being present. As they regained strength, he began to train them gently, building trust through kindness, not commands. To the world, they were discarded pups. To him, they were heroes in the making, and he would stand by them, just as they had fought silently to stay alive. Days turned into weeks, and under the soldier's constant care, the transformation in the puppies was nothing short of miraculous. What once were trembling, malnourished creatures tied to a tree were now beginning to resemble the noble breed they were born to be. Their eyes, once filled with fear, now sparkled with curiosity. Their frail bodies grew stronger, coats shinier, and tails wagged a little more each day. The soldier visited them morning and evening, never missing a moment. He played with them, trained them with patience and love, never raising his voice. He didn't teach them obedience with force. He taught them trust with compassion. And the puppies responded, eager to please a man who had become their savior. They learned quickly. Sit, stay, come. Simple commands at first, then more complex ones as their confidence bloomed. They followed him wherever he went, bounding beside his boots like little shadows. Hope was still the smallest but the fastest to learn. Brave remained quiet but alert, always watching. Valor had a proud stance and a protective instinct that reminded the soldier of the trained K9s he had worked with during service. What surprised him most wasn't just their intelligence, but their loyalty. They never let him out of their sight. It was as if they remembered everything and clung to him not out of dependence, but out of devotion. The bond they shared wasn't forged by treats or tricks. It was born in pain and sealed in love, a connection deeper than words. Word of the soldier's heroic rescue quickly spread through the small village and beyond. At first, it was just whispers, tales shared in the marketplace and murmured between neighbors. But soon, the story of the 3 helpless German shepherd puppies, tied to a tree and saved by a compassionate soldier, began to ripple across social media. Photos of Valor, Hope, and Brave, now healthier, eyes bright, tails wagging, touched hearts far and wide. What began as a tale of cruelty turned into a movement of kindness. Villagers who had once turned a blind eye to stray animals began leaving out food and water. Children came by the clinic to see the puppies, learning about empathy and care. Local shopkeepers donated supplies, blankets, dog food, toys. The village vet received funding to improve her clinic, thanks to donations from strangers moved by the soldiers' unwavering dedication. Letters poured in, some from animal lovers, others from former soldiers who saw in the pups a reflection of their own battles and healing. A journalist even visited to document the story, calling it a testament to the unbreakable bond between courage and compassion. The The soldier was humbled, never seeking recognition. "I only did what any decent human should," he said. But quietly, he was proud, not just of the puppies, but of the change they had inspired. Where once there had been silence, there was now a chorus of kindness. The dark act of one man had been overshadowed by the light of a village united in care. As the weeks turned into months, the bond between the soldier and the 3 German shepherds only deepened. By now, they were no longer just rescued animals. They were family. He couldn't imagine life without their loyal eyes, playful barks, and constant companionship. And so, he made a decision that had long been written on his heart. He would adopt them, all 3. He built a proper kennel beside his home, complete with soft bedding and a shaded yard. But more often than not, Valor, Hope, and Brave slept indoors, curled up near the fireplace or the foot of his bed. They walked beside him through town, greeted by smiling villagers. People no longer saw the pups who were abandoned, but the courageous trio who symbolized survival, healing, and hope. Years passed, and the once scrawny puppies grew into majestic, powerful German shepherds. Trained, loyal, and loving, they were more than pets. They were guardians of both home and heart. The soldier, now older and settled, often sat on his porch with them by his side, reflecting on that fateful day in the woods. Sometimes, in quiet moments, he'd whisper, "You saved me too." Their story became more than just a tale of rescue. It was a legacy, a testament to the truth that even in life's cruelest moments, a single act of kindness can echo forever. Because in the soldier's heart, they weren't just dogs. They were a promise he kept, and the family he never expected, but always needed.